Being 7 o'clock, I would entertain a motion to open.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is a meeting of the Acushnet Finance Committee, Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. We'll start our business this evening. We'll turn it over to Mr. Kelly, and we will go through the budget for deliberations and the town meeting articles.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, last meeting you took care of the articles, other than the funding articles for sewer and golf. So as far as the budget lines, you have done a number of the smaller budgets, the no change budgets, but I suggest I just go through the list and I will tell you budgets that we've worked on in the last couple of days, and if there's any others that the committee wants to discuss, if a committee member will say hold, just like we do in the town meeting, then we can get through it.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Reserve fund, $150,000, no change. Town meeting elections, $14,280. That went down because there's not as many elections this year. Moderator, salary, $725, expense, $150, total, $875, no change. Selectmen, $236,400 for salary, $16,000 for expense, $252,400, and that is a decrease. Finance Committee, $2,500 salaries, $400 expenses, no change, for total $2,900. Accountant, $200,506, $63,900 for expense, total $264,406. Assessors, $121,626. For salary, $67,870. For a total of $189,496. That went up slightly. That is primarily software that we had to buy because the previous version was not going to be supported. Treasurer collector, $212,107 for salaries, $71,600 for expenses, for a total of $283,707. Town council, $100,000, no change. Technology, $23,165 for salaries, and $220,550 for expenses, $243,715 for the total. Nick was here and explained a lot of the technology purchases to the committee. It's something we have to do, and hopefully we'll come into the 21st century soon.
At some point.
Town clerk, $154,985, $7,501 for expenses, $162,486.
Is that highlighted for a change or is it just?
Yeah, the change was a salary adjustment for the elected official was removed. The board's view is that when you're reelected, that's the time for a salary adjustment on an elected official, not every year,
So,
like employees.
so that got reduced to what, a 0?
No raise.
But she hasn't had an increase.
Last year.
She did? Oh, okay.
Board of Registrars, 11,000 salaries, 14,826, for a total of 25,826. That's gone down for the same reason as elections. Conservation Commission, 79,371 for salaries, 2,000 for expenses. That's a minor decrease of 81,371. Soil Board, 0 salaries, 15,800 for expenses. Planning Board, 46,957 for salaries, 9,600 for expenses, 56,557.
A cut? Are we cutting the position?
Planner shared.
The plan is shared, but the clerical position was cut to 4 hours. Board of Appeals, 3,505 for salary and 33,150 for expenses, 6,655 total. The salary went up slightly there so it could be put in the grid, the union grid, and at some point the board has discussed trying to put a number of these minute taking positions into one position and have one person, especially since everything's all recorded and everything, and have one person do it.
Spend $1,000 on AI and just get it done.
Well, with AI especially, you could.
Yeah, just if there's a meetings, you can put on closed caption and then it'll just spit out the text.
Town buildings, 146,183 for salaries, 86,000 for expenses, for a total of 232,183. As you know, we've centralized custodian maintenance into town buildings, and we're chipping away at the various projects. I think the best project from my point of view was removing an unsafe ramp from the front of Party Ways.
Yeah, that was
It was
horrible.
like a skating rink,
Yeah, I remember that.
and they recognized it and took care of it. And I'm glad we have a really good foreman, and we have some young folks from Old Colony. So it's working out very well. I hope we keep the young folks from Old Colony more than a couple of years. And general government went down $23,017. So we're economizing everywhere we can.
And I think that's a great thing to highlight too, Mr. Kelly, is the fact that we're asking everybody to be level funded, even with the increase in expenses that we have, energy everywhere else, and contractual obligations, and our general government is still down over last year, so.
Well, while you highlight that, I'll highlight that the Board of Selectmen went from 273,868 to 252,400.
Yep. Most of that was salary.
Yeah.
So there are no longer any unfunded jobs in town side. We've closed those up.
We've closed every job up that the selectmen are not planning to fill.
Right, okay, thank you.
Can you just take me back to the town clerk one again? When I can't find it now, when she presented,
She had a raise.
okay, she had a 2, and then, so do there's other employees in that office that are getting
They got raises.
contractual? Okay, and hers got cut.
Just because she was elected.
That was
Yeah,
the board's philosophy.
What's
Pub-
the term for the town clerk? How many?
3 years, I believe.
She's up this year, I think. This coming cycle.
Police,
Public safety, yep, police department, $2,720,204 for salary, and $230,061 for expenses, for $2,950,265 for total. The total of the permanent employees includes everyone but the chief. And all positions that the board is planning to fill. Including, once the assessment center is done, the deputy chief, second in command. They,
I see that in the fire's salary increase, but you say the police chief is not in?
the police chief's not in permanent salaries, he's in a separate line.
Okay. But in the combination here.
All the other positions in the department are right now in the permanent salaries.
What else got moved there? Because the second in command is 122, but the difference in the request is up like 170. Is there something else that went into the?
Because it's going to be a shift mid-year, we have to make sure we have everything budgeted for. And promotional opportunities, assuming that 2 of the eligible sergeants end up going into be chief and deputy chief.
Backfilling those.
I assume the funding allows that. And it would allow, when all the deck chairs have stopped moving, that most likely you're gonna need to fill a cadet position to go to the academy.
Just one? Is that they're planning just one additional? officer going to the academy?
They, right now, it depends, as you would know, on when the academies are scheduled and when we can get an officer
I think he said his hope was 2,
in. Yeah,
but we were looking at definitely one when he came in.
yeah, it's, because the way I understand the process for the chief and deputy chief is they put the RFP out for the assessment center company. They reply, the various vendors reply, then the board interviews, decides who they want. Then the assessment center company and the board get together for the company to know the board's priorities. The eligible sergeants have 10 weeks to study by civil service law or regulation, I'm not sure which. And then they schedule the assessment centers. And I don't know if, it sounds like the board would like to have the 2 run concurrently. And then the board will get the civil service gets the results, puts out the results to the board, and then the board makes their choice.
They have a budget for the assessment center? Is it budgeted for anything?
It was, and if not, depending on when it is, they'll get his adequate funding available. I think the last time I saw it was 10, 12 grand. But
Yeah, that's probably about right.
and there's 8 or 10 companies, but I'm only familiar with 2 or 3. Did we do fire department?
Nope.
No,
Okay. 998,174 for salaries, 213,750 for expenses. We decided to take the reserve out. We're going to probably, or the board will probably be doing an article in the fall to take care of that. Once we did a little more research, we found that if we put it in the budget and we don't spend it, then it goes to free cash. And that was not the intent of the board. The board was to have it somewhat like a revolving account, but
Take
not
care of needs and top down.
specifically
right.
a revolving account. So we're talking about how we could design something through an article to do that.
Understood, like we did with stormwater and all the other things, which would make sense, instead of getting blindsided by a large expense that comes up,
Yeah,
to be able to put a little away at a time.
so that is a change. Inspectional services, 147,989 for salaries, 19,900, expenses, 167,889. Aside from the usual contractual increases there, we've got the $1,000 earmarked for someone to be on the bench, so to speak, as a deputy building inspector, being mentored by our building inspector. So eventually he can take the exams and the courses and get the certification, because our building inspector, as you know, is a retiree from another community, and he's, like me, he's a short timer. So we're trying to develop a bench. Sealer weights and measures, 1,169, and then 1,050 for expenses. The reason for that is the sealer weights and measures, we were sharing that individual with New Bedford, and they were picking up the expenses.
That's right.
And now he retired from New Bedford, so we have to pick up the expenses to make sure he keeps his certification, et cetera.
Makes sense.
So we got by for a while.
It was good while it lasted.
Emergency management, 4,000 for salary, 13,900 for expenses, that's no change. Animal control, 54,790, and 7,240 for expenses, very little change there. Forestry, 1,000 for salary, and 17,000 for expenses, 18,000 total, down 1,000. Old Colony.
And just before you move on, Mr. Kelly, I just want to
Yeah.
point out, when we look at public safety, which includes, again, police and fire, as well as everything else that we just covered, increase of less than $6,000 over last year. So it's a great job for all of those departments for working within what the town's means were. Just want to say thank you to everybody while we had the chance.
Yeah, it's been a very good effort by the town side and finally the school side. The major increase other than fixed costs is Old Colony.
And I know, unlike our own schools, Old Colony has an increase of Acushnet students this upcoming year, which was pretty large. And outside of our own school's budget, their budget includes all of the retirement and benefits and everything else that's in place, where it's in their budget and it's not in the school budget here, it's in the town budget. So I know, being on the school committee or the finance committee portion for their school, I think their increase was only 2.1% once you factored out
Yeah,
retirement
but
benefits.
their health insurance was 19.9, and,
They got hit like we did 2 years ago.
well, we weren't hit that hard.
No.
And we were hit 9.9 this year, almost 10.
Well,
And we made an offer to them because there was an opening in the group that we're with,
Yep,
and they didn't want to explore that.
well,
So that's too bad.
yep.
Old Colony, 3,243,522. And Acushnet School Department, 16,534,645. I do not know the interior of the school budget, but it was a very good effort for them to come from approximately 750,000 increase to 141,000.
Absolutely.
Definitely hats off to the school committee for their hard work for it on both sides. I know Old Colony let go of some full-time employees as well to cut their budget down. So, not an easy thing to do, but we gotta work with what we have within our means, and they were able to do it, so thank you to both of them.
Public Works. 435,656 for salary for highway, and 578,200 for expenses, for a total of 1,013,856, and that's only a minor increase. 110,000 for snow and ice, you know that is constant because DOR doesn't let you decrease it on it, so, but lets you run a deficit.
Yep.
Street lighting is 27,350, no change. CMAS is 45,000 for salary.
That's gonna be we've gotta have an issue there, I think, Mr. Kelly. Just because you're showing an increase of 36,450 on salary total line, but only a less than $2,000 increase in salary.
Well, I think that's the total difference, if you look at the expenses.
That's a total.
Well, usually you have it where the change is, so, okay. Gotcha.
That's probably because we were changing the number a number of times as we were looking at changes in pricing coming in. The international situation causes a fluctuation. We've seen a fluctuation in the past to now of $30 a ton.
Well, remember the good old days when they were taking our recycling for free?
Anyway, 45,000 for salaries, 1,314,062. It's not much we can do with that.
No.
Cemetery, 5,500 for salaries, and 1,325 for expenses. As you can see, it's a minor, fairly minor public works increase, and most of that was in the solid waste. As far as water goes, water reserve fund, 60,000, no change. Public works water salary total, 233,416. Expense, 1,613,430. And then indirect costs, 41,901.
Is the expense side of it, where are we drawing the money out of the expenses? That it's that high, is it
New Bedford.
purchasing from New Bedford? That's what I thought. But
Uh,
then, what are our indirect costs? Because it's the first time we've seen that line item.
Yeah,
Breaking out, they're probably breaking out insurance costs and stuff.
insurance,
Gotcha.
and we took pension out because of an issue with the reserve fund, reserve receipt fund, as far as the pension, charging indirect costs for the pensions for that, but it's insurance, it's workers' comp, that type of thing.
Thank you.
And the total is 1,888,747, and the debt service is 207,000. Public Works and Water total is 4,672,840, And when you look at that, backing out the cost of water for New Bedford, it's a very small increase.
Yeah.
It's 40,000. Board of Health, 132,778, 29,385 for expenses, and almost half of that is the consortium we belong to for the nurses. So it's 162,163, if someone should play that. Council on Aging, 113,051 for salaries, 23,884 for expenses for 136,935. Veterans, 20,772 for salary, 121,625 for expenses. That is primarily what we give to our veterans, and we get reimbursed 75% of that from the state.
Is there any veterans being affected by that? That's
Huh?
a good chunk. Is there any veterans being, I mean, what's being cut?
Well, with the veterans agent now, he keeps very good books.
Okay.
Just more efficient.
I think when Brad came in, he said he was comfortable decreasing the number because of where he was at last year.
It was,
About
I just want to make sure none of the
And the
veterans.
families he had, no, he addressed that. He
Yeah.
said that he was comfortable decreasing.
yeah, it was, prior years, we think it was back of the envelope estimates.
Well,
And he said that it was aging veterans that have passed, that the
Yeah.
expenses have declined.
Okay.
You know, the board was very concerned with that, but
Mhm.
we went through and went through the.
I just want to make sure none of the veterans are being affected by that, that's all.
And of course, they put forward the veteran work-off program. You've got, and veterans can access more than one of the programs. So you can, like blocks, pile one on top of the other.
Like you do senior and,
Well, you can do the veterans work-off, you can do various abatements, and so you can, you're not just eligible for one program, and you have to choose. Library, 248,063 for salaries, and 57,557 for expenses, 305,620. That preserves the Mars.
I was gonna say
Recreation is no change at 10,000 salary and 15,225 for expenses for 25,225. Park and Rec, 29,000 salary, 20,967 for expenses, 49,967. Historical Commission has gone down 7,660. The reason for that is we took the alarms out of that budget, put it in technology. It's kind of all being centralized with the fiber,
that.
because it's all involves the fiber. And
Yeah.
if you
Because
want,
we got a new run going up.
if you want a better explanation than that, either talk to him or Nick. And miscellaneous is 4,000 salary, 8,000 total. And you can see culture and rec, really the increase is the library to keep it with Mars.
If we factor the library out, we actually down a little bit, so they came in under budget. That's, again, great job by the town.
Regional government expense, 3,805, no option there. You have to pay it. But it's, that heavy burden that you see.
$57 increase?
Debt. You see the principal went up, that's because we're retiring a debt, and that was the end payment, so that's why usually principal doesn't change much year to year. And interest, long-term interest went down, 86,380. The 61,250 is the same as last year because we haven't been quoted yet on the interest cost for the band. So I don't expect it'll be that high, but leave it where it is until we know. It won't change that much, tens of thousands at most. Joint benefit accounts. We took pensions, as I said, out of water and also out of sewer because of the difficulty figuring out what we were doing and whether it was allowed with the water reserve. And so that's from Bristol County and an estimate of Medicare. 2,088,683, and I use present payroll for Medicare, so that'll probably go down a little. Insurance is 2,605,789. An increase of 134,368. I consider ourselves lucky to get out of an increase in health insurance of 9.9. That is why we've established the health insurance stabilization fund. Because down the road, if you get hit either for an assessment because you have some very catastrophic cases in town that are gonna skew your rates, or you get a high rate anyway, that will help ease the pain. Because I can't see health insurance not going up year to year for the next 2 to 3 years at close to 10% to 12, maybe even 14. Unless what they're doing with the pharmaceuticals in Washington changes the pricing. But right now, we're getting rebates on our pharmaceuticals because of bulk purchasing and purchasing from using rates of other countries, which is what the federal government's trying to do right now.
So those were all our individual budgets. Can we vote on them as a whole unless there were questions, or do we need to go one by one?
We could go, I think that would be more.
Just let me, you can, if there are any you want to vote individually, but the total budget is 36,988,765.
And balance to where it needs to be.
And that's a number that we can work with, right, balanced?
now I'd like to go over the revenue sheets. We changed the withholding for the overlay. It had been 200,000. I put it on the, I think I put it on the front.
You did, but I shuffled my papers around.
All right. So in the first section, which is the tax levy, traditionally, you've had around 200,000 in the allowance for abatement and exemptions. Over 3 years, your run is around 100,000. And you have quite a bit in your overlay account right now. As you know, we used some of it last year, and there's still quite a bit in it. So the board, in their wisdom, decided to put the allowance for abatement exemptions, the overlay account, at 150 instead of 200. That is a negative number from your levy. So in effect, we kept $50,000 of the tax levy instead of putting it in.
Overlay.
As you can see in your sheet, I've got governor's budget, House budget, Senate budget. The legislature, in their wisdom, hopefully will have a budget by July. And so it's, once the Senate passes theirs, it'll have to go to conference committee. And what we hope is the legislature decides, the Senate decides to keep their high number, the House decides to keep their high number, because they usually split. One will go with town aid, one will go with school aid. And if we could keep both of them high, then we'll, at least state aid might be around 1%. Looking at local receipts, and we've done multiple year runs now since I've been here. And we've increased the motor vehicle estimate, which I think is more in line. It's a little high in the percentage, but you're averaging around $1.8 million to $1.9 million for excise. And here we have it at $1.6 million in our estimate. The $1.5 million for the excise and the 100,000 reserved out of the excise for road repair. We didn't change the next penalties and interest. Charges for services in water. In FY25, we estimated high. And DOR has questioned that, so we've returned it to the $1.8 million estimate. The next major change is your meals tax, which is approximately halfway down. You'll see that it's got blanks through a number of years. And then the $31,492 for the first year is a quarter in about 3 weeks, because that was the phase-in period. So our
When
estimate,
did it go into effect?
well, it took a while to go from here,
To the state.
to the state, to the AG, and back, and then back to DOR.
Okay. So I thought it went into effect like in October or something like that.
We had literally 1/4 and a scooch
Oh, okay.
of payment. And so we're estimating at 100,000. That's something that we have to wait and see on
Right.
when we actually get some runs.
So it might actually be higher.
It won't be much higher, but it could be 125.
Yeah. Because that's all during like winter months and stuff like that, where tourism or whatever is lower.
You don't have a lot of establishments. You have some, but you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot of fast food places or,
Yeah.
you know, so it's going to be constant. It's helped. Other departmental revenue, we saw that we've been averaging more than our estimate, so we moved the estimate up 15,000. Licenses and permits, we've definitely been averaging, but we didn't go crazy because we see a decrease in permits right now. And that's the economy. But we did think it warranted an increase when you look at some of the actuals and you look at what it's been tracking. You could figure about a average year to year of about 300,000. But I think it's prudent to wait a year and see what's going to happen with the economy. Because I've seen some of your permits down as far as 30%. Which doesn't bode well for new growth, an increase in new growth either. Investment income. I still think that might be a little conservative, but we're gonna let it run. Now, you have to remember that before I got here, you had some interesting, well, before I got here, before Jen Grant got here, before some of the finance people we brought in that were retirees that worked for the town, filling in while we hired folks. You had your tax revenue in a capped interest account. And you're making about 35,000 a year. So we've got it in money markets and other accounts, and we're doing it professionally.
And it's paid off.
Yeah, substantially. And other than that, you will see in the bottom of the revenue sheet, there's a decrease. That's because we're not using the overlay surplus, and we're not charging the indirect costs as revenue, because after we did that 1 year, DOR advised us to actually put it in the budgets. So that's what we did this year. And so our revenue is 36,993,510. So when you look at it, we're about 4,000, 5,000 to the good.
That's a small margin.
It's a small,
balanced.
But it's black, it's not
Yeah.
red.
yeah, it's a small margin, but Sue last time was talking to me about free cash and where it comes from. Well, when I looked at it and I had to go back, and the analysis isn't really a good analysis, financial analysis, because the free cash we're looking at now was affected by our change in our banking policies. But $1.2 million of our free cash this year came from excess receipts. But that also is a very big chunk of $500,000 because of changing our banking policies. So don't expect that to be that much year to year.
Yeah.
It should level off and stabilize at this point.
Are there any questions on individual budgets? And then I'd like to go to the sewer and golf articles, which you folks haven't talked about.
I don't have any questions.
Any questions, comments?
Do you make a motion to vote on the
I make a motion that we vote on the town budget as presented.
second?
Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Appreciate it. It's,
On flood fight.
it's, you still have a very viable local receipt section of your revenue that in the future I would advise that, and I'm probably preaching to the choir with this committee, but that you look at it conservatively and you don't count on revenue year to year, that you're, and look at the high numbers. You know, 75 to 80% for the larger accounts is a good estimate.
This committee, for the most part, has been pretty conservative
Yeah.
over the past several years.
And then override.
Yeah.
No, well, it's
Key to this?
I would say, knowing the number of communities, the south coast and southeast Mass is fairly conservative with municipal budgets.
Seems to make you happy. Does that mean we're gonna get this for one more year maybe?
No.
I had to ask.
Actually, I'm waiting to see what's going on in my town. I don't want the job, but a friend of mine is retiring at the same time from the town manager job in my town. And we've been comparing notes, what we're gonna do in retirement.
Gonna go to Cheers and have a beer in honor of Norm?
That would be fun. In my misspent youth, I spent quite a bit of time before it was Cheers, when it was the Bull and
Bull and
Fish Pub.
Fish, yep.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a Norm there were multiple Norms. The sewer enterprise, you can see, we put some indirect costs in These figures are definitely,
What page is it on?
it's at the end of
32.
32, the back.
Article 32,
Yep, there you go.
page 32. How about that?
Coincidence.
And it, there are figures that have to be verified as far as sewer revenues and retained earnings that I have to have, and that might be the second section as far as how it's raised might be changed slightly by accounting, and that's fairly typical. We do that right up until we send it to printing. It mainly should reflect the top, so you're looking at about 42 that,
Will be needed.
but as I said, that's for the real accountants to figure out, because that's a DOR formula. And I will say that the fact that you're doing the indirect costs for both sewer, water, and golf seriously help not only the budget, but for the citizens to know what those services actually cost. Golf the same way. The indirect costs, they went up slightly from last year, mainly because we've sharpened our pencil. Actually, we have no estimates. We went body by body to figure it out. And part of it in golf is the unemployment costs when certain people are laid off, or as Kristen knows, if you have someone working for you part-time, but they work for someone else and they get laid off elsewhere, you end up getting bit for part of their unemployment. Which I've never understood the rationale for that.
Thank you.
So I make a motion that we accept Articles 32 and 33 as presented.
Can we do that with possible changes coming through, like you said?
It would only be to actually reflect the numbers in the first section.
Should we hold off until, because the other articles, right, we're gonna wait on
Yeah, we
those.
have to wait, yeah.
The other
Other
articles
no
are planning.
position.
Right,
It's
we're
not-
gonna, didn't we discuss that we wanted to get more information, we're gonna vote on these articles
I thought that was
at
one
the
of the,
town meeting?
There's a
The
couple.
meeting before the town.
yeah, but there's three that are here, they're all on zoning, right, and general bylaws.
Yeah,
So those don't affect the finances of the town, so we were talking about taking a position on these three.
Yep.
That's what I thought we did with 35
It's,
to 37.
they're not under my purview, they just send them to me, I put them in the warrant. They're planning board articles.
The ones that we held was Article 30, which was the school, the training one about the.
oh yeah, that was the one that we already talked about.
That was held, and then 26, 27, 28, that is the collective bargaining that the selectmen are still working on.
Right, we didn't have that. Those last three were ones we said we were gonna take no position on, 35 to 37, because it was non-financial.
Yes, correct.
Well, I'll second the motion to accept Article 32 and 33 and 34 as written.
I thought you voted on 34 already.
Yes, we did, sorry. But you had it still in here, so that was the bunker for the vote, coming out of their own funds.
Should be 32 and 33.
So I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to accept Article 32 and 33 as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. That should take care of this part of it.
Now we send it to the printer. Well, we actually proof it tomorrow and then send it to the printer. Mike's letter is downstairs, I just haven't formatted it in.
I don't think it's.
And then, I haven't formatted the selectmen's letter in yet either. And then we do the index.
Oh, there's one over here.
And if there are any questions from individual committee members, in preparation for a town meeting, just call the office, I'm always available. Huh?
I know you are, I've called you a few times.
I can even, if someone needs certain talking points, I could provide them. But, I'm glad we balanced the budget, I'm glad we got through it. I'm glad we didn't,
Now we can vote the next year.
I'm glad we didn't have to, actually close departments.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'd like to say thank you to every town department, as well as the school, for stepping up, and also to you for the hard work that you've done
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
this year and over the previous years, and it was a pleasure working with you.
Thank
And
you.
the work you're gonna do next year for us.
I was gonna say, it's just surprising.
Yeah, you're coming back, right?
Well, you haven't seen my consultant rate yet. That'll eat up part of your investment income.
That's why you're so conservative.
Right. He's trying to put a little money, it's like, just in case, no. it's just-
You never know, funny things happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna retire and then this job was advertised.
Well, now you have the opportunity.
And,
And now he's
It
thinking,
was-
I should have retired.
and now it was close to home and I wouldn't have to drive an hour and 15 minutes
It's been a
one
pleasure
way.
working with you.
So it was perfect, and then Pauline informed me about my roots.
That was a bonus.
Mhm.
See, now,
Stuff I
that's it,
didn't
now you
know.
can't get away, right?
I think we're done.
That takes care of the business we have as far as the budget and the town meeting articles. There are several town meeting articles that we're going to take up at our meeting before the actual town meeting. And outside of that, does anybody have any old business? New business?
So the meeting our meeting will be at 6, correct, at the middle
As
school?
far as I know, 6 o'clock in the middle school,
We'll hear
before town meeting.
from the
I
chairman.
don't know which room we're gonna use because there's gonna be several
Yeah.
meetings going on
Like the
simultaneously.
selectmen.
Usually the selectmen, if they need to, will be there for, especially if any of the collective bargaining agreements get finalized. And
I slept down in the library.
Yeah.
I assume, if the school committee has any issues, they'll be meeting too.
Mhm.
It's-
Motion to adjourn?
They've got contracts pending.
Yeah.
Mhm. Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
I,
Opposed?
Aye. Nope.
We are adjourned.